that they're playing God with the weather, that they want to have that as an option for warfare. But in the same breath, they're saying, oh, there's just nothing we can do. Everything's melting, and one of the most pay more taxes.
One of the most idiotic contradictions in this whole circus with respect to the climate change weather modification thing has to be stratospheric aerosol injections, because all this obsession about emissions, right? You go to get your car inspected primarily to make sure that you are compliant with the emissions standards. Okay, so we're all obsessed about emissions. What about the global program that is being funded at your expense to inject the stratosphere with emissions? Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to play a clip where John Brennan, formerly of the CIA, right?
Right.
Is speaking to the Council on Foreign Relations, which is just
another one of these kibitzing think
committee.
Tanks. Yeah.
They do essentially drive foreign policy in the North American hemisphere,
Right.
And they every once in a while they'll make a stunning, they'll roll something out that people had, the conspiracy theorists had talked about before, and were criticized for, but then they'll just go out and admit it, some stunning things in these meetings.
Right.
It's often on C-SPAN, and it just more like, we know that our constituents are dumb, and they're dumbed down because of us, and we're gonna now roll this out, admit it, and be confident about it, and hope that you don't actually do anything about it. You don't even remember the conspiracy theory guy talking about it, years ago.
Right. And, don't think of the whole War of the Worlds phenomenon with H.G. Wells and him being a high-level Fabian socialist and advocating open conspiracies, and the fact that all these think tanks use that white paper method of just, sympathetic magic, coming out in the open and admitting what they're going to do, but not really advertising it, but then kind of bragging about it later, and then castigating anyone that calls them out on it as being crazy.
Right.
And it's just, it's mass gaslighting and occultistry.
Right. Yeah. But just the concept that they do these stratospheric aerosol injections to cool the earth by reflecting sunlight. But wait a minute, what about the greenhouse gas effect, right? CO2, volcanoes, smokestacks, and all this. It's supposed to emit this greenhouse gas that's going to trap the sun's rays. So are they going to prevent all the sunlight? They're just going to reflect it all? Like, it's crazy. So anyways, if y'all don't believe that they're doing it, check this out.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, a method of seeding the stratosphere with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat in much the same way that volcanic eruptions do. An SAI program could limit global temperature increases, reducing some risks associated with higher temperatures and providing the world economy additional time to transition from fossil fuels. This process is also relatively inexpensive. The National Research Council estimates that a fully deployed SAI program would cost about $10 billion yearly. As promising as it may be, moving forward on SAI would also raise a number of challenges for our government and for the international community. On the technical side, greenhouse gas emission reductions would still have to accompany SAI to address other climate change effects, such as ocean acidification, because SAI alone would not remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. On the geopolitical side, the technology's potential to alter weather patterns and benefit certain regions of the world at the expense of other regions could trigger sharp opposition by some nations. Others might seize on SAI's benefits and back away from their commitment to carbon dioxide reductions. And as with other breakthrough technologies, global norms and standards are lacking to guide the deployment and implementation of SAI and other geoengineering initiatives.
So the real clip there was John Brennan. I mean, is he trying to act like the program doesn't yet exist? It's just proposed. I mean, the shit exists. It's been going on clearly. Just look into your skies.
Right.
You see them. They're called chemtrails. But if you go on YouTube and you search chemtrails, then they caveat any video with a Wikipedia article, Encyclopedia Britannica. Are you fucking kidding me? Contrail, also called condensation trail or vapor trail, streamer of clouds, sometimes observed. You know, this is their whitewash on the SAI program, just admitted to by the government.
Right.
Okay, and so like, why is YouTube just straight up trying to conceal the fact? Now, this is a video that I shot in 2012, and you know, it's not like it's got a lot of views or anything, but they've just algorithmically kind of retrospectively filtered. I think I put chemtrail in the tags, right?
So they buried it.
It's I'm sure it was buried from the start, but now they're just like outright propagandizing this situation.
Right, doing the damage control
right
tab. Yeah.
And so, you know, you talk about, I mean, even still, the fact that they've admitted it on C-SPAN, and you can go to weathermodification.com and click their client list.
Yeah.
Right? Governments all around the world. Most of the operations are in the U.S. I know we covered this on a past episode, but I mean, this is a global operation. If you even believe in the globe, right?
Right.
It's an operation that's happening in every country essentially in the world. Probably not for what they say it is.
No.
Because I mean, again, like he even said he was like, we're going to be spraying all this stuff up in here to reflect the sunlight, but still sunlight's going to get in and it's going to be trapped because it's greenhouse gas, but we still need to reduce your emissions.
Right. And then,
I mean, what the fuck is that?
Totally schizophrenic. Yeah. And then, well, it also brings up the broader question. Well, but wait a second. I thought that we're adjacent to space. Don't these gases just eventually escape out into orbit?
See,
or?
I had a conversation recently. With a coworker of mine about this. Mm-hmm. We got into it about gravity, right?
Yeah.
And so I started asking some fundamental questions because it all ties together, right? You have to. It's a package deal.
Yep.
You got to believe the
it's
whole
a
package.
Closed feedback loop tautology.
And we were talking about the atmosphere and gravity and how in the NASA rocketry videos where they attach a camera to the rocket and it passes from gravity to no gravity to orbit. But it literally is like a sort of a jolt, and then all of a sudden everything's floating.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Magic. Yeah.
So if it's so sudden, that's got to be like a barrier.
Or a, trick photography and misleading footage.
Oh, of course it is.
But ultimately, even if you were to buy the theory, it kind of begs the question. Well, wait.
No, that's what I was asking him. Is okay. So is there a barrier or is there not? And he was like, well, no, the atmosphere is more like a gradient. And I'm like, well, then how come it goes from gravity to 0G and then now we're fixed in orbit? Like that doesn't make sense to me. And then also, if it's a gradient, how is the atmosphere contained and we have this greenhouse gas effect?
Right.
If it's If it's a barrier, that's one thing, but then we're talking about a barrier.